All right. So today's class, we are going to continue with unit number 3, which is business pitches, basically. And to take into consideration that topic, we have been talking, first of all, about critical thinking, because critical thinking is very important for whatever that you're going to be doing, especially for your careers. And also, we were talking about a certain fallacies that are regarded to critical thinking, especially in class. We talk about the Stroman fallacy, but it's not the only one. We had special homework to talk a little more about fallacies and, of course, to develop a little more about critical thinking. And after we finish with those topics in Unit 3, we also touch about proposals, business proposals. And in order for us to learn a little bit about that information and how to apply that information, you had been working on a homework that it was about creating a magazine. It was about being a little innovative and creative that you are working on a magazine. It was about like 2 pages plus the cover of a magazine where you could explain what a business proposal is, and of course with the example of a project that you have already worked on or that you could be working as in right now as a student, and of course as a group. But after that, we need to continue talking about projects. And in this class, we're going to cover about project protocol. What is a project protocol? And we're going to talk about that, the definition. We are going to also talk about developing a protocol. What is the format for that? Because a project protocol should have also a written report. And normally the written report has a format. And we're going to cover the general format of a protocol. And of course, at the end of this class, we're going to talk about presenting a project protocol. What does it really mean? Which basically means about orally presenting the project that you might be referring to. Since I'm talking about protocols for a project, we need to take a look at the definitions first. And after the definitions, we consider about what the rest of the process of a project protocol takes. So let's start with it. With no further ado, let's start with the definitions. And here we are talking about project protocol, but I'm going to cut the definition in the 2 of them, which is, let's talk about what a project really means. And then let's talk about what a protocol means. And of course, once we understand both of them, we put them together and we talk about the project protocol. All right, so let's go. Then, a definition from a simple dictionary. In this case, we're using the Oxford language definitions. And in there, you're going to find, as usual, several definitions. So we're looking for the definition that applies to our class. And at this point, we have 2 of them, one which is a noun and the other one which will be applied for a verb. So as a noun, a project has the meaning of an individual or collaborative enterprise that is carefully planned to achieve a particular aim. Which if we put it into more simple words, we could say that a project could be referred also as an example as a research project. In North America, a government subsidized housing development with relatively low rent. So this is an example. Her family still lives in the project. It's also another word, but we are not talking about this type of projects. These type of projects are about housing that are on the outside of a city, and there's usually very poor living, and it's called the project. But That's kind of a different project, okay? So we are only talking about a project where you can talk about certain steps to be taken, but in order to either solve a problem, design something, investigate something, and so on, and etc. So I'm gonna write it here. So it could be a project to solve a problem. That's what I just mentioned. It could be a project to design something, which could be a product or it could be a prototype, whatever it is, something. And it's also, like I said, it could refer to an investigation of something, which usually we call an investigation some research. So that's why you're going to keep seeing that word, which is more common to talk about. Okay, so the definition of project then, it will be about, so working on something collaboratively to either, like I said, either solve a problem, design something, or doing some research. I have more definitions in the next slide, so be patient a little bit. This word project comes from Latin as the prefix for pro, and then just here, which means both of them, one means forth or moving forward, and to throw, which it doesn't have the whole meaning if you just put them into parts as the root of the word. So actually, project, as the roots from Latin, it means preliminary design, tabulated, or statement. All right. So we could also say that the part of projectum or the part of forth is referred to something prominent or throw forth, which is, like I said, something that is going to help us move forward and discover something. That's why it's used to solve a problem or design or some more about those. Okay, so let's keep on taking a look at the definition. An individual or organization involved in projects, now that we're referring to this or our organization, so just take a look, just as a reminder, remember that organization means company. Involving projects needs to understand how to solve complexity of problems through project management. So when you are talking about projects, it's always, and especially for you as industrial engineers, it's always going to come to project management, administración del proyecto o gestión del proyecto. All right, so the project then is a great opportunity for any organization and individuals to achieve their business and non-business objectives. So that's another part, to achieve objectives more efficiently through implementing change. Projects help us make desired changes in an organized manner and with reduced probability of failure. So that's why we do projects, because we organize them. And the most important part of it is we reduce the probability of failure when we are managing the project. Why? Because usually when we are working on a project, we do some investment, and the investments, of course, are related to money. So we don't want to have a failure and just spend money that we're not going to recover. So that's not the point. So the objective should be fulfilled, and we should be able to have some profit. Okay? Hopefully you're understanding what I'm saying. I'm using more vocabulary. I have become more technical in these classes because that's the way that you're supposed to keep growing in your language. All right, so When we keep on talking about projects, we also need to understand that, let's go back to it. We also need to understand that we talk about types of works, which could refer to processes, tasks, procedures. But that is different from just a project. Meanwhile, in the broadcast sense, a project is defined as specific, finite activity that produces an observable and measurable result under certain preset requirements. So now we're getting to what a protocol is. We have been defining project, but remember that we're taking a look at project protocols. And since we are defining project, then a project should be under certain preset requirements. And those requirements, who gives those requirements, los requisitos? Well, that will be from the organization that you are presenting the project to. With that said, it's not the same for if you're working on a company, it's not the same as how the requirements for a project protocol are in your company that the ones from a different company, or that the ones also for a research place or a university. The protocols are a little bit different, but also are kind of similar. We're going to take a look into the development of project protocols and also about the format, the general format for a project protocol. So a project should be then an attempt to implement desired change to something that might be already controlled. By using projects, we can plan and do our activities. For example, take a look at simple projects in general life. Build a garage. Run a marketing campaign. That's also a project. Develop a website. It's a project. Organize a party. That could also be a project. Go on vacation. Nice, isn't it? That's also a project. Graduate a university with honors. Because it is a process. It takes a process to get that. Or whatever else we may wish to do. So, with this said, if you took into consideration this, for all of those examples that we were mentioning, there is a time frame. That's why a project is temporary, unique, and progressive attempt or endeavor made to produce some kind of tangible or intangible result. So, which means, yes, it's temporary, unique, and progressive, and it should give us a result, a unique product, for example, a service, a benefit, a competitive advantage, among others. So it usually includes a series of interrelated tasks that are planned for executing over a fixed period of time and within certain requirements and limitations such as cost, quality, performance, and more. Okay, so that has been the definition of project. A few examples of projects that we could mention could be then developing a new product or a service, constructing a building or facility, renovating the kitchen, designing a new transportation vehicle, acquiring a new or modified data system, organizing a meeting, implementing a new business process, and so on. So this is just general examples for such engineers as you are. No matter how big or small your project is, you can benefit from using editable project templates, and this is a recommendation. Nowadays, you can find templates even from Microsoft Word, or you can find it just by looking through the internet. And templates are really useful for whatever you're writing and reporting. templates will give us the easiness of writing because it will save us time. But you don't necessarily need to use a template. This is just something, it's like a tip. You can use templates or not, that's whatever you want. So in general templates, you can see what to do, the budget, schedule, reports, and other project management documents. You can use them. And like I said, you can use templates or not. That's up to you. And depending also on the company that you're working. Some companies, especially if they do take a look at quality and quality management, that's what I meant. If they take a look at quality management, they take a look at every document that they use. And in that case, if they have declared every document that they use, they should have a format template for any project that you're working on. So that's just to make sure that you know that things are not as hard as you think. You can always find templates, and that will make your life easier. Okay. In terms of managing a project, since we talk about project management, and why is this important for you as industrial engineers? Because that's part of your job. That's something that you're going to be doing in any area that you're going to be working on, any industry. You should do project management. So this project management, it's about planning, controlling, and executing a project in a way that ensures the success of that project. It is widely used in organizations as a complex of tools for delivering strategic goals and objectives. And let me just tell you, there is also a position that is well paid in some companies, especially bigger companies, that they do have a position which is a project manager. Because it is so important to keep following the projects and keep the planning on, that many companies, several companies, have special positions in every department actually for project managers. And it is really very, very well paid. They do give you good money for that kind of position. Okay, just to let you know. The key advantages of using project management within a company's business environment can be described as accelerating improvement and strengthening the company's management, adopting systems engineering approach, and of course, because you want to deal with the risks effectively, and last but not least, accompanying specific changes that are linked to the company's strategies. Pardon. All right, so that's about having a project and that it is important to manage it. Then, since we're talking about project protocols, that was the definition of a project. But now, what is a protocol? So, a protocol is like the definition from the same dictionary from the Oxford Language Definitions. It said that it is a noun, which is the official procedure or system of rules governing affairs or state that will give you how to follow a project. So that's very interesting. A protocol will be mainly the written form of a project. So it could be procedures, conventions, code of behaviors, what to do. It will tell you those things. It's also a protocol. It's also understood as a diplomatic document because it is a very formal document. For example, an agreement of treaty, a pact, a convention deal, an arrangement, etc. If we take a look at the next definition, and then number 3, it's also a format or official record of scientific experimental observation. And this one is, of course, very common for scientists and engineers. A record of experimental observation. So it means that a protocol will have in its document the records of data. So the protocols of published cases frequently lack this vital information. So you need to consider that they should have data, the results. For example, a study protocol approved by the ethics committee of the hospital. That's an example. That's also, the computing has also protocols. So in terms of defining a protocol for computing, that's a set of rules governing the exchange of transmission of data between devices. But that's not the type of protocol that we're taking a look into it. We're referring more to number 2, number 3, and of course, number 1, because it is a statement. And it's usually, yes, it's public, but for a certain amount of audience. If we take a look at the roots of the word protocol, will come from the Old French as protocol, which comes actually from Latin and Greek, protocolum, which means the collection of set of forms of etiquette to be observed as the head of state and the name of the government department responsible for this. That's why when we use the word protocol, we're talking about something that is really serious, but we're talking about a document. So now we're getting to it. So it means that a project protocol should be a document that should also be presented to certain audience. Okay, any questions until now? Maybe not, I don't know.
Not yet.
Okay, not yet, we're doing good. Thank you, Maria. Then, since we define what a project means and also what a protocol means separate, now let's see them together. What is really a project protocol? So take a look at it. You can also read it at the same time as I'm doing it. Then, a project protocol is the statement of rules or formal system for a common agreement or standard for the project development and implementation that enables different organizations to use the same procedures, specifications, and objectives. And then you're like, what? Okay, so the second part, the second paragraph will be easier to understand. The project protocol document are normally a project summary, a project background and information, goal and objective, methodology and organization, the budget, schedule, project risk, and references. And of course, it brings the etc. because normally you have a little more information over there, which you use the appendixes or yeah, like appendixes or extra information on it. So normally a project protocol will be a document that is very formal. And now we're talking about formal reports. I don't know if you remember this, but in one of our classes, a few of our classes, we talk about formal reports. At the beginning of this semester, we talk about them. And last semester in the English Conversation Seminar 1, we also talk about the formal reports. But the great news or the good thing is that you as students of engineering, you have been working in this type of formal reports since you've been a student. Then you are supposed to know how to write this. The difference here on how to report a project will be about what type of project that is. But let me tell you, you are already familiar with this type of protocols. Let's continue. Go to the next one. Then a project protocol means that is a document which describes the project, the objectives, the design, the methodology, the statistical consideration, and organization of a project. We have a few examples on how it's used. The word project protocol is used in a sentence. So we could just read a few of them, and you can take a look at them over here. For example, you have early action offset projects using climate action reserve forest project protocol version 2.1 must use and meet all the requirements in compliance offset protocol US forest projects October 20, 2011. That's an example on how it's used on a sentence when you are writing English in English and use it using the word of project protocol on a sentence. Let's take a look at the second example. Climate action, reserve forest, project protocol version 2.1 and 3.0 through 3.2. If the early action offset project contributes early action offset credits into a buffer account based on its reversal risk calculated according to the compliance offset protocol, US Forest Projects, October 20, 2011. Okay, so these are only forms, just I decided to include this part so you can see how to use it on a sentence, the word on a sentence. But we're going to take a look a little more about how to develop the project protocol. So let's go and see how to develop the project protocol. Let's go and continue with this. Then, developing a protocol. Let's see, there's a message. Sorry for being late, I was, okay, good. Diana, you manifested yourself. I'm just gonna take the time. There you go, I took your attendance. Good. Developing a protocol. What is it about? Let's take a look at something that is called the project life cycle. So if we take a look at the project as in a time frame, we will see that there are phases. Phases for a project. The concept of the project will be the first phase for it. Then the development of the project, which is the most important part of it, which that's what we're taking a look right now. It's the part where the project gets developed and communicated. To be able to communicate the project, you need the protocol, and you also need to present the project protocol. Then you implement the project. So if you take a look at it as this cycle, from the start to completion on the implementation is where we have the highest point of it. And then conclusion for it. So the project protocol should also include, if you're able to, you can hypothesize what your conclusion will be, or if you're able to experiment or to design something, you can also give the conclusion at the same time as you present your protocol. Okay. Any questions? No, still not. Okay, we're getting there. We're getting there because now you're going to start understanding once we get to the checklist and the format on the time of the type of format that you can use as to be able to write a project protocol and also to present the project protocol. So a protocol is the core document that describes the objectives, the design, the methodology, the statistical considerations, and organization of, and I left this part blank because it could be a study, a research, a product, or whatever it is that your project is about. The protocol also serves an external purpose by providing a clear and full description of your study. And again, when I'm referring to study, was study or research, design of a product, whatever you're referring to your project. On that process such that the study results can be truly understood by others. So this means that you are going to present your project protocol. And that's part of the development of the project. Okay, so you don't finish the project until you present it. Who is your audience on a project? That will be, if you have a project in your organization, in your company, then your audience should be the management people. If you have a project in a university, your audience should be your colleagues, or if there is a boss above you, that should be your audience, and so on. Okay, so 10 critical steps to include in a project plan. Remember that we talk about project management? Then we should consider these sort of steps that we shouldn't forget to consider on a project plan, which will be, we should set the goals. Goals are also a synonym to call the objectives, okay? We could say that it's a synonym. The scope, how much or how long is the project gonna be, or how many places or products is the project going to take, and so on. And the scope usually also talks about the time. Milestone and major deliverables, if we're going to use equipment, if time also plays a certain role over here. If we are discovering something and we need resources, special resources, we should mention here in that part. Work breakdown structure, how we're going to work with it. And this is related, of course, to a, oh, I didn't put it there. So let me just clear this one. So the breakdown structure should be related to the time frame also. And normally that planning, we do that planning into a Gantt chart. El diagrama de Gantt, which is something that helps us do our planning very good. We should consider the budget. Human resources plan, if we need more people to work with us, we need to consider that. Risk management plan should be good to consider if we may have some risks. Communications plan, how is the project going to be communicating, especially if we are going to be working with different departments. Stakeholder management plan, who is interested on our project. And if there are changes that could happen, we should consider and present those also to our audience for the project. So those were 10 critical steps. Then, from all that we have been talking about, we were mentioning that a project protocol ends up being a document. And since this is a document, we should talk about writing the protocol. Then, how do we write the protocol? I told you before that in general, we could consider a format in general, and it will depend on your company that you work, if they do have their own format or not. If they don't have their own format, you already know how to present a formal report. So it should include these following suggestions that I'm going to be making. I have a checklist that I included here. I'll tell you the reference also. It's included from where I got it. And this checklist is intended to help you. It's an aid in suggesting a format for writing protocols. and in identifying issues that scientists, engineers, entrepreneurs, among others, I mean, whoever wants to do a project and needs to write a project protocol, then they should consider as they design a study or a surveillance system. When using the checklist, this checklist that I'm going to present to you, investigators or whoever is in charge of the project should select the items that apply to their specific project. Like I'm telling you, this is a general, very general checklist. It's not like it's a rule that you have to use all of those pieces. This is only a general format. It is not expected that every item on this checklist is applicable to each protocol for a study or a surveillance system or whatever your project is about. So let's see. The checklist, I have it separated in 2 pages. This is the first page for the checklist. So this checklist tells you. And that's when you should be saying, oh, that's similar. I have done reports that have this type of information on them. Okay, so it's the overview, which will be the title, a summary, and if you have investigators or collaborators, funding sources, you should be able to include that on your protocol. Okay. Then, of course, the title should also be part of, or you should have a cover page for a formal report as this is. Then, if you have a summary, of course, you should have in every document that is a formal document, you should have an introduction. That introduction could have or could be in different parts. You could have a section that is called specifically an introduction, and then another section that has the literature review or knowledge that you used for your project, a justification for the study. This is way, way very important. You need to justify your project. If there is potential use of study, if there is design locations, the objectives, the hypothesis or questions that you may have before starting the project, and of course, a general approach. But like I'm saying, this checklist that you are seeing right now is very general. What I will advise you to have in every, let me just clear everything. I will advise that you in your projects at least have the title, a summary, of course, the introduction section, literature review, justification, of course, objectives, and at least the hypothesis or questions. This is very, very important. And just take a look at this because this is what is going to be related to your homework. You are going to work on a homework for a project protocol. About what project? Whatever project that you have already finished in your school. I don't care, and it doesn't matter to me if it was a project from your first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, or seventh semester, or if it is an actual project right now. What I want you to experience is to write a project protocol. And it's going to be very short. You are only going to take about 1 page per section, 1 or 2 pages for every section. You don't need to write the whole book for your project protocol. It's only going to be a little example. Then you should be able to have procedures and methods. How about the design? And if you could be able to mention this, that would be awesome. So it's a description and sources. If you have participants, if you have well, since we're talking about the methodology, so we're talking about procedures. And we continue talking about this in the next slide. So I need to close the pen. And go to the next slide. So procedures and methods also include variables, the study instruments. You should be able to use those on your homework also. And of course, more information. This checklist tells you about investigative new devices, intervention or treatment, outcomes and meaningful differences, and so on. This part is also very important, data collection, how you're gonna work with that. And of course, you should be able to present your results and conclusions. That should be another 2 sections, 1 and 2 sections, where you should have the data from your results and you should have some comments for your conclusions. I'm letting you know here in this class the instructions for your homework. And you should always, as a professional, include your references. And if you have extra information as an appendix, you could talk about more forms of data collection, tables and figures that there were a lot of information to put into the normal order of the document. You can put them at the end, or other relevant documents. So you should be able, for your results and conclusions, well, actually for your results, you should be able to include this type of data or information in your protocol, graphs, the budget, etc. Hopefully you understood. If not, remember that you can always ask me for it in the advising time. Then that's not the end. For a project protocol, which is very important to write a document, yes, but the document of that project protocol should also be presented. And normally you will do that as in an oral presentation. And since this is an oral presentation, which is very formal also, let's take into consideration the following advices. The oral presentation should be for your protocol evaluation. You are presenting your project protocol to your bosses, the management, to the people that will give you the money after the approval, so you can do your project. So it's very important to get the approval. In that sense, you need to persuade, convince the evaluators that the project is worth doing and that you are capable of carrying it out. Then that oral presentation is very, very, very important. So you need to take into consideration these things. How do you do it? Then you help your evaluators to understand the motivation of your idea. How do you do that? Okay. There is general and specific. In general, you can say, what is the problem? What is its soil scientific significance? What you're going to be solving? Or you can do an approach very specific for your questions, your hypothesis that you are trying to solve. That type of work should be original, creative, innovative. You need to make sure that you tell your audience when you are presenting this. Is your project novel? How is it related or compared to prior works? That's why a project protocol also includes literature review, because es el marco teórico o revisión literaria, that gives us prior works, and that gives us the understanding of what we're doing in a better way. So since we are presenting this type of work, this should include, and almost for every organization, the logic of the outline, how you present a project protocol would include an introduction, the methods, the expected outputs, which could also include the target beneficiaries, results and discussion, budget and timetable of activities, conclusions, of course, and last but not least, you need to consider this thing. When you are doing a very formal presentation, you should do your planning very well and you should practice, rehearse, because it should be about 15 to 20 minutes. It's not about an hour or 2 hours. It should be very executive, like an executive summary presentation. Plus, it should be 15 to 20 minutes plus the time of questions and answers. You need to rehearse, which means you need to practice before you even present, so you can reach the time frame in a very well manner. Remember that this is very, very, very formal. In about 10 minutes or less, you should be able to cover all of this information that I'm having here. The brief project overview, and take a look at this in 10 to 12 minutes, no more. Sufficient background information, statement of the research or design of the problem and goals, details and methods, predicting the outcome, the needed resources, which also include the budget, which we're calling about the money also, but it's not just the money, it could also mean infrastructure. Societal impact if all goes well. And the timetable, like I was referring before, a Gantt chart should be included. So just make sure that when you are going to present some project protocol, you need to consider this part. And I'm almost done. Let's keep talking about this project protocol. The 5 truths of effective presentations, just as a reminder, whenever you are presenting something, and especially a project protocol, just remember if we are using, because normally you're using some visual aids, and your visual aids are normally from a PowerPoint presentation. So just remember that the slides are not the presentation. You are. Because you're not supposed to be just reading, you are supposed to be explaining the project. And of course, just remember the use of the visual design. You need to take a look at the spaces, and that can also be explained a little more. There is a document over here where I took this, and this document explains to you a little more about the space, but we have talked about this in different classes before. This is just a reminder of it. You can tell stories through images. So that's why it's better to use a lot of images, not just words or lines. Don't fumble with technology. So you need to really know what you're doing, how you're using the technology that you are going to be using on your oral presentation. And last but not least, what we always tell you, it's about practice. Rehearse, rehearse, and rehearse, which is a synonym of practice. You need to remember this for every time that you're presenting, but you need to remember this, of course, for a presentation of a project protocol. And if I'm not mistaken, this is the end of the PowerPoint presentation for the class for today. Let me just tell you something. That was definition, that was about format, that was about also speaking about the format that you're going to be using for your homework. So you need to pay attention because you're going to be working on, like I said, a very simple project protocol, from a project that you already finished or a project that you're working on right now in this semester. And you're going to use that information to your project protocol, and that's what you're going to present for this week. So the word for this coming week, it's a project protocol. A small version of it, it will be a resumed version of it, but that's what you're going to be doing. So basically, a lot of that information, you're going to be translating it. I know I'm personally someone that doesn't like to translate things from Spanish to English because it takes a lot of effort. Basically, I don't like translating things, but you have to do it. Since you already have that information of those projects that you're going to choose, and those projects are in Spanish, you're going to be doing some translation. And with that said, I'm going to give you free decision to do it in teams. It will be teamwork. But how are you going to choose your team? Your team should be the people that worked with you in that project that you are going to decide to write it in the protocol. Remember, if you have any questions, let me know, and I'm gonna be helping you to write the format. And for the submission of that homework, you need to tell me in advance what your team is so I can put them up in the platform, and just only one person will be submitting that homework, and that's fine with me. But just let me know before you submit it so I can, well, I'm gonna give you a few days before that so I can upload the names and edit the place where you're going to be submitting this project protocol. Any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Are we going to be working in communities?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. You're going to be working in teams. Exactly. But
okay,
that doesn't mean, Carmen, that it is the community that you have right now, because it changes every semester. So what I mean is, if you choose a project that was from the third semester, for example, maybe a project that you did with Professor Christian, I don't know, you can take those that data and make it into a protocol. But with whom did you work on the third semester? I don't know. So that's why it will depend on the people that you have worked on those projects, instead of choosing the actual communities that you have right now.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Yeah, because what's the point of having a project? I'm just giving an example. Let's just say that Carmen, Ramon, and Gilberto worked in a project. Gilberto and Diana, 4 people. That you worked in a project on your 6th semester. Maybe for marketing. I don't know. I'm just making this up. It's just an example, okay? So let's just say that, yeah, Carmen, Gilberto, Ramon, and Diana did the work. But right now in the 8th semester, maybe your community, Carmen, maybe your community is Carmen, Maria, Valeria, and Hatnael. But that means that Carmen has a different project, and probably Maria has a different project. Maybe Valeria and Hatnael had one project in common, but that makes it more difficult to decide which information you're going to be using. That's what I'm giving you, a free selection. You can select the people that is part of your team. Just let me know. I'm gonna keep reminding you. I'm gonna give you the rest of the week to let me know which people are working with you, so that I can upload it on the platform, and you only need to submit one. How long is the protocol going to be? That should be another question. How long is the protocol going to be? That document, how long? Like I said, it requires about a page per section, a page or 2 pages per section. So it should be about like probably 10 to 20 pages, depending on the project that you're going to work with. So it's not that long, but it's not that short. It is like a resume of the project that you did before, but like I'm telling you, it's not that short because it should have a format.
How many time do we have to do that?
How long do you have? You will have, normally you will have about a week, but it probably takes a little longer. So I'm going to give you 2 weeks for that. Because it takes time to translate. You're going to translate information. Vas a traducir información. So that it takes a lot of time. Yeah, or translating a page, it takes like an hour or something. So it really takes time. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Good.
Can we work with the project of pine cake? It was Gilberto, Juan Pedro, Diana, and I think so.
Yes, of course. You can work on that one. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
That's perfectly fine.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Okay. Then any more questions? If not, remember you can also ask your classmates, but make sure you ask me also. And with that said, for this week, since I'm going to give you 2 weeks for that, I'm going to open a forum discussion, a discussion forum, just about the topic that we just touched today. What we were discussing today, you're going to discuss it or keep discussing it on a forum on the platform. Very simple, just about what you heard during this class. Okay?
Okay.
All right,
Okay.
then. It was great to see you guys. Hope that you have a nice rest of the week. And if you couldn't hear the whole class, or if you need to go back to the class to be able to answer the discussion on the platform, make sure to watch the video. The video will be uploaded in a few hours, so I'll let you know. Or just check the platform. All right?
Okay. All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Nice to see you guys. Bye-bye. Be safe.
Bye.
Bye.